Hey everyone, welcome back to PintheQ Productions, PintheQ Podcast. Today we have Chris Ryan with us. Typically, you'll see us in the studio. Today we did a little something different where I wanted to make it more of a at-home interview. Unfortunately, I couldn't be in New Jersey to speak to Chris one-on-one, but in today's day of technology, at least we're able to do this. And again, I wanted to share his message and his story. It's one that's very personal and one that I think needs to be said. But more important, Chris told me that he wanted to tell the story. So that's why we're here today. So welcome back to the show. Chris, welcome. I appreciate you being here. It means a lot. I know we talked off camera about how important your message is and how important this was for you to talk about. And also, the people in your life that are very close to you told you how important this is to get your message out. So, Chris, welcome.
Hey, Frank. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate this opportunity. And like you said, so many. I had a little, and I told you, off before we got on. I had a little bit of an apprehension initially, but in talking with my wife and some of my close friends, it's something that needs to be set straight as well as, said openly.
Right. Well, that's a good point too, because, unfortunately we have some really great things about the fire service and we have some not so great things. And one of the things is, sometimes stories get twisted and misconstrued. So it's always coming from the horse's mouth is obviously the best approach always. But Chris, before we get into that, I'd like to kind of go backwards a little bit and tell me, like I ask all my guests, and that is like, how did this start for you? I mean, how did, Firefighter Ryan become a thing?
So would we go back to when I'm 19 years old? I'm in college. I'm playing baseball. I'm going to go pro, obviously, just like everybody else.
Yeah, of course.
And that quickly got halted. And I was putting up pools for a living, on a summer job. And I was in Cherry Hill and I was putting a pool up down the street from the firehouse. And, 9:00 in the morning, I'm humping sand barrels back and forth. And I see these guys sitting out in front of the firehouse drinking coffee, basically watching me.
Yeah, it's not an easy job, man, putting pools together.
No. And it's 98 degrees out. These dudes are sitting out front drinking coffee, watching me and stuff like that. And I'm like, I see these guys and I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like, I wonder what they do. The fire truck sitting on the apron and stuff. And we took a break and they're still sitting there. And I went over there and I asked one of the guys, I was like, hey, man, do you get paid to do this? And he's like, yeah. This is our job. And I was like, well, how do I get this job? And he's like, well, where do you live? And I'm like, well, I live in Gloucester City. And he's like, oh yeah, they got a career department. He's like, you got to take the civil service test. And I was like, oh, it's all I got to do is just take the civil service test and I can sit out front at 9:00 in the morning and drink coffee. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So, unbeknownst to me, I went home that day and I told my wife at the time, hey, I'm gonna be a fireman. And she's like, yeah, okay, you're crazy. Nobody in my family's a fireman, nobody, I don't have any lineage or anything like that in my family or anything like that. And
that was gonna be my next question. Like, this is a calling where people in your family, because most of these people on a job, they're volunteer or career, they always have somebody,
No, nobody in my family, So I was living in the Westville area, which is kind of down the road from Gloucester. I'm born and raised in Gloucester and all that stuff, but I'm living, down in Westville with my wife and my first wife. Let me just clarify this. My first wife. All right. Yeah, I'm living there. We're living in an apartment, and I went and I joined the Westville Fire Department, and there, it's a volunteer department. And I went and joined there, and I was like, hey, I'll be a career guy in Gloucester City. I'm just using this as my stepping stone. And very quickly did I learn that shit don't work that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I joined there and got my, I joined in July, and Wildwood Convention was in September. And they're like, hey, this is, we're going after the President's Trophy. And I didn't know nothing about any of that shit. And, cleaning the apparatus and spit shining and marching in the parade, and I had my first introduction at 19 years old to, the convention. And
that's a whirlwind, man. If you're like a young kid, 19 years old, you go to Wildwood, it's like utopia for the fire department. For at that age, you don't know what's going on. It's overwhelming, really.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is crazy down here, and I'm like, this happens every year.
Yeah, there's a huge party.
Yeah. So and then I go to the academy, and I graduate the academy in 1997. And then I'm like, all right, well, I know I have to go to EMT school, because you got to be an EMT to work in the city of Gloucester. So I venture into the EMT program, which, I went to Gloucester County College EMS program. Great program. Guy who runs it still runs it. Great dude, smart dude. Funny thing, we wind up working together years later when we get deployed to Katrina.
Oh, wow.
And, I run into him every now and then, and I just kind of shake his hand and I smile, and I'm like, So I go to EMT school, and I get through that. And back then, I think it was $150, $105, something like that, to go to EMT school.
What's it now? Like $500?
It is $1,000.
Holy moly! That just
go to the Camden County Fire Academy EMT program is $1,000.
I think I got my EMT in '92, and I don't remember what it cost, but it's probably around the same price. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's
like
crazy.
$100, like $150 or something.
Yeah. So,
crazy.
I go to the EMT program, go through all that, and got to take the state test and all that. And back then, they didn't have national registry or any shit like that. It took me, and I believe I still hold the record in my department for the most times to pass the EMT test. Took me 5 times.
That's awesome.
I literally had, so after you fail 2 times, you have to go through a Core 13, what they used to call Core 13.
Yeah.
I had to do that, and then I got 2 more chances to take it. And, I just had that, that dream of
bro, how excited were you? Not to interrupt you, bro, but how excited were you finally got the letter where it says,
oh my God, dude.
Congratulations.
Dude, they told me flat out, they're like, look, if you don't pass it this time, like, you got to go back through the program. Oh. And, it was a pain in the ass.
Oh, absolutely.
But, we got it done. And, we just moved forward with everything with the dream in mind. And, that goal in mind to, one day I'm going to, and work in Gloucester. And we wound up moving back into the city. And I went, took the test, and I was going in on a house with 2 buddies of mine. They bought a house in Camden, in off of Collins Road in Fairview.
Right.
And I was going in on that house with them, and I was going to, we were going to go become the fireman. And the day I was going to sign the lease, Chief Glassman, who was the chief of the department at the time, he called me, like, right as I was getting ready to walk out the door.
It's crazy.
And this wasn't like the age of the cell phone. He called my house phone.
Right. It's all about timing.
He's like, hey, you want a job? I'm like, a job doing what? He's like, being a fireman. I'm like, can I call you back? And he's like, are you kidding me? So I called my 2 buddies, and I'm like, hey, they just offered me a provisional position in Gloucester in the fire department. And they're like, dude, take it. Because, we haven't gotten offered anything for Camden.
Right. You're like just going through emotions right now, trying to find a job.
Yeah. So they're like, dude, you gotta jump on this opportunity.
Yeah.
I took the job. 8 months later, these two guys wound up getting on the job, and one of them, Eli Hall, he just retired as Engine 10's captain, and Mikey Miller, he's captain over at Squad 7. We cut our teeth together in Westville, with this dream of being career firemen. And I think at that time, I think Westville Fire Department, in that little time span, I think they turned out like 8 dudes within a year that got on the job somewhere, from Mount Laurel to the airport, um, Camden, Cherry Hill. Like we were all young kids with this dream.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And we all got picked up in these departments.
That's awesome, bro. So it's a good thing you did what you did, man, because I tell you, certainly even then, it wasn't easy to get on the job. I mean, now it's even harder, but back then it was even harder, I think, to get on.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely harder back then to get on the job.
I agree.
Than it is now. And we could talk about down the road a little bit down the road here about why I think it's easier to get on the job now than it was then.
It was definitely tough back then. And the one thing you mentioned was, well, I do believe in the universe, man. I think that timing is everything in life, because like you picking up that phone call right as you're walking out the door, like you said, it wasn't a cell phone era. Like you couldn't just get a text message back then,
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I had to call Chief Glassman back, and he's like, oh, did you make up your mind? Did you, talk to you had to talk to, And
yeah, he must have been like crazy. What is this guy, nuts? He don't know what to take his job.
Right. He don't want to take the job. But it was a job. It was a position. It was a provisional position.
Right.
And when I went into the department, he's like, hey, you have to come out in the top tier of the test to keep your job, or you're going to lose your job.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's even more pressure.
Yeah.
Added on to me with but there was a bunch of us, even like the chief of my chief of my department now, like he got hired like a year and a half before I did, provisionally.
Wow.
We cut our teeth together for all those years working the bus.
Yeah.
And, together. And, we all had to go through the same thing.
Now, what were you doing at the time for a job before you got this phone call from the chief? What were you doing?
I was driving a forklift. Working in a warehouse in Westville for the chief of the Westville Fire Department at the time, Chuck Murtaugh. Good man. He took care of me, looked out for me. I was working for him in a warehouse, in a paper warehouse. It was a paper company. And I was driving a forklift.
Bro, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned the chief from the volunteer department, because I'll tell you, man, being a young kid, like you, I followed just like you did, man, joining the volunteer department when I was very young. It's funny how like the life experience you get from these guys at the firehouse, the things you pick up on that you weren't taught before you get to the firehouse, like, and that's one of the things I've always said, like you always find a job at the firehouse, someone's always got some side hustle or, some job, or somebody knows somebody that has to get you a job. So here you are working for the chief, man. It's pretty cool.
And, yeah. I mean, that's what it was. It was a side hustle. Mm-hmm. And, I got, the chief came in one day. He's like, yeah, you want a job? I'm like, I got a job right now. He's like, yeah, but you want a job working for me? And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So
it's cool how that works out, man. I love hearing stories like that. And you're obviously not the first guy that's ever said that to me, man. And it brings me back to when I was younger and stuff, getting those jobs from people at the firehouse. There's always good connections, man. It always, like, I seen you smile when you brought up the chief's name, thinking back about those times. Like, you reminisce about it. It makes you smile. It was good memories.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm 19 years old. I'm gonna be 45 on Friday. What I mean? I'm not a young man anymore, and, I still see Chief Murtaugh every now and then. And, I shake his hand, and, I just look at him. I don't say anything. I just look at him and I smile.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because I really don't have any words, because, he took care of me, and, so is one of those people that I'm where I'm at now because of that dude, because of him.
That's good stuff, man. That the kind of stuff we're talking about when we talk about, like, the firehouse culture and things that happen within those four walls that have volunteer firehouse, man. It's amazing what people become from those four walls, man. It's always awesome to see.
And that was that department that I was in, Westville, as a volunteer. I mean, we went to a lot, we went to a lot of things. We went to a lot of shit. We went to fires. We went to accidents. I got a lot of good experience. But one thing that fire department taught me was you play the part, but you got to look the part.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They taught me, you have to have discipline. You have to, you have to wear blue dicky pants and a job shirt when we go cover somewhere. You have to represent, and, it taught me that, and it taught me to have, pride in the apparatus and the equipment and all these things that, I still preach to this day to people. I remember I was leaving, I was hired on a Monday at the firehouse, and I was leaving my job working for the chief in the warehouse. And we had an accident at like 9 o'clock in the morning on 295. And it was a rescue assignment. This lady in a Honda Civic just got clobbered by a dude that came from the opposite side of the road in the air.
Oh, man.
He clobbered her.
Yeah.
And, we're cutting this lady out of the car. I mean, she's pinned in there really good. We get the door off, and she had like bilateral femur fractures.
Oh, man.
Bilateral humerus fractures. I mean, she was really, they landed a helicopter, and we're on 295, 7 minutes away from Cooper, the trauma center. I mean, that you're landing helicopters for that.
Yeah, it's bad.
And it kind of like, after everything was said and done, I kind of went over and I sat on the guardrail, and I got this weird taste in my mouth. And I was like, I guess I turned green or a little bit or a little white. And I remember Eli Hall walking by me, and he looks at me and he goes, "Yo, you all right?" And I'm like, "I don't know, bro. I feel kind of weird, like I'm queasy." And he goes, "Just think, Monday morning, you're going to do this for a living." And I'm like, "Thanks, man."
That's awesome.
So, yeah, but.
Well, he's right.
Yeah, she was absolutely right.
Yeah,
and,
that's funny,
shit got real fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
It gets real fast.
So when you didn't have to go to the academy because you already had your fire cert, right?
Yes, I didn't have to go to the academy. We, they hired a shit ton of us, probably 9 of us provisionally.
Wow.
Within like a 2-year span.
That's a lot of guys.
That's a lot of guys provisionally. Yeah. And it's like, yo, you got to come up in the top to keep your job.
Right.
And back then, you were having in Gloucester, you'd have 50 people on the list.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're lucky we get fucking 10.
And you're talking about 200, maybe 300 people taking the test, right? I mean, it was nuts.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, down the road a little bit, we could talk about like,
I know exactly what you're going to say, bro, because I see it too.
It's not the same.
No, it's not.
It's not the same. Back in the day, your one provisional spot, there's 10 dudes that will kill a small family to get away with it, to take your job and not even bat an eye.
That's no joke, man. You're dead serious. I know, man. It's serious. It's crazy. People were nuts back then.
But it doesn't seem to be that way now.
No, it's not.
It doesn't seem to be that way now. It's almost like you got to go knock on their door and be like, "Hey, man,
you interested in becoming a fireman?
You want you want a job. You want a career?" And they're like, well, what are the hours?
Yeah.
You got to work 2 days a week, 98 days a year, 8 days a month, 98 days a year. What, do I have to work holidays? And I'm like, never mind.
Bro, yeah. There's too much to be said about that whole conversation. So I'll leave it at that. But
that's, I mean, we could.
You're absolutely right, though, bro. And you're definitely you're speaking my language, because that's definitely an issue now. It's more of an issue than it's ever been. But so day one, you're at the firehouse, you're provisional, so you have that stress of, man, I got to do really well to stay here. So tell me what it was like for you that first week on the job. Like, walk me through that, man. Walk me through that because this is a pivotal point in your life. This is what you wanted to get to, back from the time when you saw those guys sitting on the apron when you're slinging concrete. So here you are. Tell me about that.
Yeah. And I used to run by the firehouse, practicing for the physical at nighttime. I used to run by the firehouse and tell myself, one day I'm going to work there. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I will say that one day I was with Westville and we were covering there because the career staff was at the burn building. And there was a career guy there, and he comes out, and my buddy says to him, "Hey, this kid right here, he wants to work here one day." And this guy looked right at me and he goes, "You'll never work here. You'll never work here." So here we are all these years later. You're not there, and I'm still here.
Yeah. Bro, those are the best people in the world to have say that to you, because there's nothing.
Oh yeah,
nothing sweeter than when you show them they're wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just just a little more fuel to the fire for the physical. That's all that was.
Absolutely.
And first day I go in, and my two of my buddies are back then we had an ambulance, we had an engine, and we had a ladder.
Okay.
And two guys worked on the bus. The lieutenant and the chauffeur worked on the engine, and then there was one guy on the ladder. That was it. That was our staffing, 5 guys.
Wow.
And when you come in as a junior man, you start off on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a firefighter. The ambulance has air packs. You have fire gear. It's all in the ambulance. But you got to run EMS calls. And at that time, we were running 2,600 ambulance calls a year.
Oof.
We're the single busiest ambulance, and we stayed that way all up until 2011, 2010, when the city took the bus away. We're the single busiest ambulance in Camden County.
What a glorious day that must have been.
And that last day, that last tour, that night tour, I was a senior man on the shift, and I asked the battalion if I could work on the bus for that last 12 hours. And so yeah, I go in, and a buddy of mine's working. Two of my friends are working ambulance. Dennis, and wouldn't you believe it, Tommy Stewart. He's working a bus. And, he was talking to me about this, getting on the job and everything. And every time I would run into him, and I knew Tommy growing up.
Right.
I knew his brother growing. We lived around the corner from each other. And, I was talking to him a couple months leading up to it. And, I walk in the door, and he's sitting in a chair with his leg underneath his ass. I don't know how he sat like that in a chair, and his hat on backwards, smoking a Marlboro Light 100. And he's like, "Well, you got what you wished for." He's like, "Let's hope you don't regret it." And that was my first day at the firehouse, was with my buddy Dennis and him. So those first 2 days, because back then we used to work 10s and 14s. So you got 2 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights, and then you were off for 4 days.
Gotcha.
So Monday and Tuesday, I had those guys. And then Wednesday and Thursday, I had these other cats. And the other guys I worked with were Michael and Michael. Now, the one Michael is now retired. He pensioned off the job due to an injury.
Okay.
The other Michael is the chief of the department now.
Oh, that's awesome.
And those guys treated me horribly. First day I'm with them, we go to Wawa in the morning. I go to get out of the back of the ambulance, and I get out, and the now chief looks at me and goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm going into Wawa." He's like, "No, you're not. Stay in the ambulance." Then we had to go to some store or whatever, and I go to get out of the ambulance, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm getting out of the ambulance." He goes, "No, you're not. Stay in the ambulance." He's like, "You're not getting out." And I literally sat in the back of the ambulance going, "I don't think I can do this for a living." I can't work with these two jokers.
That's rough.
You know, yeah. They, you know, I mean, as time went on, we got to know each other. We became really good friends. We did a lot of crazy shit together on and off the job.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, now the one is the chief of the department, you know, and you know, I talk to him all the time. We're good friends. Um, so yeah, the first week was it was crazy. It seemed like it went by so fast,
Right.
but it seems like I can remember everything that happened Monday through Friday
And
to this day.
and that's specifically why I asked you, you know, like, how was your first week? Do you remember your first week? Because people remember their first week. Is like they can't forget it. It's like burned in their memory. You know, it's such a. Often people say, "Oh, it's like winning the lottery." You know, you finally.
It's the best. It's the best job. It's the best job in the world. I tell kids that now. Congratulations, you won the fucking lottery.
Yep.
Oh yeah. By the way, here is a list of things that this job owes you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely nothing.
Yep. Love it. Which is, you know, I know we're jumping ahead, but man, you're teaching at the academy now, right?
So yeah, I dabble in you know, I dabble down there in the academy. I help out when I can. You know, mainly working for safety and survival. Danny Dorenzo
Hey,
is the
awesome company. Awesome.
president and CEO. I helped, and I'm privileged and honored to say that I helped found the company way back when. You know, a couple of us, Danny, Chris Santone. You know, we had this crazy dream of after the 4th of July fire. We're like, hey, we got to do something, you know, because it wasn't shit wasn't written, safety survival wasn't prevalent like it is now. And you know, Danny, you know, he took the helm and you know made the company, and you know we ran through a couple academies, and you know we've been private since 2010, so it's an LLC now. Um, some of the best guys in the that I feel in around here work for this company. These guys make me better at what I do for a living. It forces you know to work with these guys, and they're guys from all over the state. We got guys from the FDNY, Jimmy Ogle from 14 Truck, Derek Baker from Rescue One over in Philly, Mark Furka is a captain at Ladder 5 in North. Like all these guys, Chrissy Santone, Jason Houck, Bob McDermott, you know, all these dudes with all this knowledge. And to work for the company, you know, you got to be on your game.
Absolutely.
Because if you ain't going to work for the company. You know,
Right.
go work somewhere else. Because you know we're at the top. We used to do a lot of fire stuff. We did a lot of RIT. We did a lot of safety and survival when we first started out. We still do that. We still do a lot of fire stuff, but mainly we're doing a lot of special operations.
Right.
We do rope. We do confined space. We do swift water, ice rescue. You know, you name it, trench, and they call it special operations for a reason because you need special people to be in those companies. You need special people to do those things. So, you know, the guys that work in this company, they're special dudes, you
Yeah.
know, and their knowledge is second to none when it comes to this stuff in this business.
The reason I made you fast forward there into the academy stuff is because it's interesting to listen to you thinking like you're walking past this firehouse, seeing these dudes out there drinking coffee, and now you're fast forward. Now you're teaching.
Funny thing is one of the dudes that I talked to at that firehouse winds up being my instructor in the academy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fast forward past that, I wind up teaching with him together. So talk about full circle.
Oh yeah, in this job, man, there's tons of that, tons of full circle. That's for sure.
Yeah, we wind up being instructor staff together, teaching together. you know, and I'm like, dude, I remember walking up to you, and he's like, I don't even remember that. I'm like, I remember it was you, the distinct mustache, and
Right.
yeah, and you know, your name and everything, and here we go, all these years later, and now we're teaching together.
Yeah.
You were my mentor. Now we're together.
Now you're shoulder to shoulder, which is awesome,
Yeah.
man.
But yeah, I teach. You know, I teach. I do what I can down at the academy. My former chief of the department, Chief Glassman, is now the he's now the director at Camden County Fire Academy. You know, a mentor of mine, someone I looked up to in the business, someone I still look up to. You know, I started down there in 2004. You know, and when things came back around for me, you know, one of my goals was to get back down there. You know, I'd been there from 2004 to 2012, and I wanted to get back down there, and you know, I enjoy it. You know, because I get to see the kids. You know, I spent all weekend this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday down there. You know, giving people the knife hand. As much as my wife told me not to do that to people, but sometimes that's just how I talk with I'm Irish, but I talk with my hands. You know, just seeing these kids coming in and you know, when you teach, it forces you to be good. You got to stay up on all the material. You got to stay up on the books. You got to stay up with, not saying that the book is the answer, because I'll be the first one to tell you, and there's a lot of dudes out there that'll tell you, Bobby Eckert included, good friend of mine, that, you know, I don't know who's writing these books, but they're just doing it to make money.
It's funny when
some of the stuff they're showing, it's like, are you kidding me?
I remember sitting down with Bobby when I did, you know, when we had an interview with him, man, and we had a lot of fun. Man, actually, we did it right in his backyard, man. We had awesome
yeah,
time.
I watched it. Yeah,
and he said the same thing, bro. He's like, bro, these books, we reminisce about the books. I remember reading the same books he's talking about, like back in the day, you know.
Yeah, the IFTA manual, yellow book, like, yellow cover.
Yeah. It's like, what are they even saying here, man?
All the pictures were of like some fire department in Texas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it keeps me grounded, you know, and it keeps me in what's going on. You know, I don't rest on what we did in 1997.
Right.
And there's dudes out there that are still doing that. They're still resting on what we did in 1997. And I'm like, bro, shit's changed, man. Yeah. A lot of shit's changed, especially with the whole ULFSRI stuff out there now. I mean, I remember yelling at people for spraying hose lines in windows. Oh, you're going to push the fire. You're going to push the fire. And here they've proven that you can't do that. You know, it's better for the people that are in there doing that.
Gives them some. I mean, when we find out people are actually surviving those conditions, it's like mind blowing. You know, mind blowing.
I mean, if the FDNY, if the biggest, baddest fire department in the country, is going and using this tactic, they have, it's called the 4 S's, for a transitional attack now. If they're doing it, bro, we've been doing it for decades. We just didn't call it that. We've been doing it that way because we had no choice. Because when you show up on a fire for the first 5 minutes and you got 5 dudes, one of them's got to pump the truck. You got 4 dudes. You got to do something.
Yeah.
I just wish I would have named it the transitional attack. I mean, on our last promotional test, it was something that you could say, like that was a tactic that you could use. So the division, the state of New Jersey, they've adopted that whole thing. You know, I know there's guys out there that are like, absolutely, you can't spray water from the outside, and that's, you know, you're being a bitch and all this stuff like that. Well, you know what? Are you the dude that shows up with 15 dudes in under 2 minutes? Or are you the dude that shows up with 6 dudes and you're there for 7 minutes by yourself? Because that makes a difference. So,
yeah, listen, there's a lot to be said about training, and there's a lot to be said about what you read versus what you actually do. Yeah. You know,
I say it all the time. Knowledge in the absence of experience is just a theory.
Fact.
You read all the books you want. You can watch all the videos you want. And believe me, I'm a big proponent of that. I do that all the time. But unless you have that experience behind that to back that up, it is just a theory as far as you know. I think Bob Pressler said that.
He did. He did say that. So you're in the fire department. You got your heels dug in. This is what you want to do. You're happy you're there. Kind of talk to me about like where your career is bringing you now. Like where was your first assignment? You told me you were on the bus, right? So you're doing that. You got that. Then what happened?
Yeah, so I'm on the bus, and I was leading up to 2002. So we're my first day is May 8th of 2000. It's my first day. So leading up to that, I'm going through my training. I literally got my EMT and got hired like 6 months later.
Wow.
Or no, I had my EMT for like probably a year, but I didn't really use it. I didn't practice. I didn't work on the ambulance. I didn't go on it. The volunteer ambulance that we had in Westville. I didn't do any of that really. Kick myself in the ass for it because I should have gotten some experience. But you get thrown to the wolves. I mean, you ride as a third for like a week.
Yeah, but what does that do? What's a week do?
And then they're like,
yeah,
here you go, man. Good luck with that shit. And, this is a city that I grew up in. This is a city that I still live in. The funny thing was the first ambulance call that I had as an official, by myself guy.
Right. It's just you and one other person. You can't hide.
That's it. Yeah. And he don't wear a long white coat with the initials DR in front of his first name.
Right.
So we get called, no shit, to the house that I grew up in. We get called to the house that I grew up in. I obviously didn't live there anymore. There's a railroad track that separates, the west and east side of the city.
Okay.
Back then they used to say, the bad section was towards the river, the good section was on the other side. Now it's not that way so much. It's kind of migrated to both sides of the tracks now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no shit. I get called to the house that I grew up in.
It's crazy.
I literally walked in the house with my partner.
You're like, I know the layout.
Yeah, the dude was laying on the couch and he was having trouble breathing. And I said, hey, sir, we're the fire department. What's going on? I said, could you do me a favor and put the cigarette out? And I'm like, you're having trouble breathing, huh? And he's like, yeah. And as he's putting his cigarette out, I'm like, I wonder why. And I said, here, man, here's some oxygen. And then literally I was like to my partner, I'm like, hey, this was our living room. This is our dining room. My bedroom was upstairs over here. It was just the weirdest thing that the first call I ever get is to the house that I grew up in. With my brother.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, so weird. But yeah, I mean, and it's just, we were, well, like I said, we were on 10s and 14s then. So you had 2 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights, and then you were off for 4 days.
Right.
And in that time, I picked up a part-time job working as an ER tech in one of the local hospitals. And that job wound up later down the road in my life. That job wound up really, really saving my ass. But it also, that experience that I should have had coming into it, I got like a crash course in working in the ERs.
Yeah, I was thinking when you said it, I'm like, what a better job to get, man, working in the ER. I mean, because it's so fluid there, man. It's crazy. Everything happens like that.
Yeah. And you don't like, oh my God, what do we do?
Yeah.
Well, the guy in the white lab coat with the DR in front of his name.
Yeah.
We'll just go ask him.
Yeah.
He'll know. That's his job. And, and you got to pick up so much. I learned so much. You get this, you might only spend 10 minutes with these people going from their house to the hospital, but now I spend the next 8 hours with them.
Right.
And see how their care progresses and the interventions that they've had to do, for whatever they came in for, whether it be respiratory, cardiac, CVA, whatever. You
Right.
get to see that long-term, that care that they're getting in the ER now. So picked up a lot of experience doing that. And then my buddy Tommy, he decides to start a board up business, boarding up for house fires.
Right.
So all the guys in the firehouse are like, "Yeah, we'll work for you." So we're driving all over Camden County and Gloucester County, boarding up houses at all hours of the morning. And he starts this business. Well, the business grows from just a board up company to now we're doing restoration, construction. And I mean, he had like, I don't know, 8 dudes from the firehouse working for him, plus a bunch of other dudes. He was growing his business. And then, and then July of, well, hold on, let me back up. So September 11th, 2002, I worked the night before. The next day we were having a drill with the city of Camden, with Paco Police, with all kinds of different agencies that have all kinds of letters, one of them being the FBI and all this stuff. We were doing a mock terrorism hazmat attack in a subway in Camden.
Okay.
This was planned before the day before 9/11. So I get up that morning, I go home to get changed because I have to come back for the training. And I literally walk in the back door. I walk in the back door, I go out into the bay, and there's a TV out in the bay on a soda machine. And I notice the guys working are all sitting there and they're like glued to the TV. And I walk out in the bay, and one of the guys says, "Yo, man, there's this fire they got in New York." And I look up at the TV and I'm like, "Holy shit, this is a World Trade Center." I'm like, there is no way in hell that a trash can started that fire. There's no way in hell. It's a concrete sprinkler building. Not knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
In the back of the bay, there's 3 FBI guys sitting there. Next thing you know, we're watching the TV. We see the second plane hit the tower. We're like, what the hell was that? The chief of the department comes out of his office with this paper in his hand, and it's a blown up picture of the news footage off his computer of an airplane going into the tower. And he comes running out in the bay and he goes, "Hey, FBI guys, you might want to look at this." And the next thing you know, their phones are ringing. They run out the door, not knowing what the hell's going on. But then probably 4 hours later, I find myself at Liberty State Park in Jersey City.
Yep.
Right across the river with, by then the towers had collapsed and everything like that. And, just sitting there because they sent us up as with a task force and just watching, this pile of rubble and, the smoke and everything coming off Lower Manhattan. And, not realizing the impact that later on in my life that day would have on me.
I know your story, so not all of it. I'm obviously going to learn today, but I know that part of it because of our conversation we had at the firehouse that day. When I had the privilege to come to your firehouse and meet the guys in the house. So I literally was just thinking what you were telling me as you said it kind of gave me goosebumps because I know exactly what you're talking about. So yeah, as you're saying it, I'm thinking exactly what you're saying. So I understand.
Yeah. So, the weird thing is after that. So fast forward to, May of 2002, maybe a little before that. My daughter, was like 2 years old and she was doing some like child modeling thing. And we were running her up to Manhattan to do, modeling stuff up there. And I stopped by. We were in Chelsea.
Okay.
I think it was ladder 12, engine 3. You just happened to be walking down the street, and I had an IFF shirt on, and the door was open, and two guys were standing there, and they're like, "Hey, brother, you want a job? Blah blah blah." We got to talking and all this shit, and he's like, we're talking about the demographics of Gloucester, and this and that, and before I left, he's like, "Hey, man, be safe out there, bro." He said, "Because honestly, you got 5 dudes in a small city. We got an army behind us." He's like, "You guys are more at risk of losing someone than we are."
I mean, their first alarm assignment's ridiculous, man. Like,
yeah, it's the transmission at a 1075 all hands, I think, is 75 guys.
That's crazy, man.
75. And then I joke with one of the guys that works for Danny and SST, Jimmy Ogle, who works at 14 Truck. I said, "You guys don't put fire out with water. You just you all show up and you take a deep breath, and then the oxygen goes away and the fire goes out." And he laughs. I mean, obviously that's not the case. Recently they had that job in Staten Island with 3 brothers, and hopefully God bless them, and hopefully for their families, and they recover quickly, and I think they just had another job today or something like that. I just saw it was like 4 alarms or something. Work business is not slowing down for them.
No, it's not.
So yeah, I mean, and that was a couple months before July 2002. So it was just weird that guy had said that to me. And all these years later, I think back to that conversation, and I'm like, wow. He's like, "Be careful, man."
Here you're thinking like, "Yeah, bro, thanks, man. You too," and you're not having any idea what, how this is going to impact you, man. It's wild.
Yeah, because in my eyes, and in little tiny Gloucester City, I mean, let's be honest. Right now, there's 14 to 15,000 people that live here in a 2.5 square mile city. It is you could blink and almost drive through the city.
But you do have some fire load there.
Oh my God,
I mean, you do.
We're one of the oldest cities in the state.
Yeah,
I think the inception of the city was like 1623. I know some guys might hammer me on that, but I know it's 16 something. I want to say 1623.
Yeah, that's a long time ago, bro.
Let's say old.
Yeah,
let's just go with old.
Yeah.
And I mean, I used to live in a house that was built in the 1800s. So we run the gamut for building construction.
Yep.
Anything you could think of, from type 1 to type 5, and then if you want to throw type 6 hybrid in there, we can play that game too here. And we got everything you could think of. Row frames, ordinary rows, standalone Victorian balloon frames,
marine.
Type 1 or type 2 big. We have one of the largest, I think it's the largest refrigerated warehouse on the East Coast, if not the country. And it has the largest solar array on the East Coast on the roof. And that's right out back of the firehouse.
That's wild.
So when that son of a bitch catches on fire, they're going to be able to see that shit from space.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean when I say fire load. I mean, you guys, I remember going to your city, and I'm not talking about me researching on Google about it. I had the privilege to go and check out what you guys have there, and I remember driving around the city, and I'm like, man, this is nuts, man. Thinking about all you guys have to worry about there, it's wild. And the first thing that came to mind there in your city is you got to be aggressive. You have to be aggressive, man, because
that's why, like I said, the transitional attack, man. We've been doing that for decades. Because you got, we like, I like to tell guys, we small unit tactics, just like the military, just like the SF guys use small unit tactics. How do 12 SF guys beat 30 insurgents? Small unit tactics.
Right.
And that's kind of the philosophy that I know I've adopted, and a lot of guys I work with, that we have to use small unit tactics if we're going to make a stand here. Otherwise, we're working for the demolition company and we're just making parking lots.
No doubt. So you're at work, things are moving along. You have this conversation with this guy in FDNY, not realizing the gravity of that conversation. And then tell me what happens, bro. Let me know what happens.
So July 4th, 2002, I'm working. I'm on the bus. We're a little busy. We get runs here and there. We were supposed to be in the 4th of July parade, but we wound up getting a car fire, and the lieutenant was like, "Hey, man, you guys just go back to the firehouse and get cleaned up. Don't worry about the parade or whatever." And I remember seeing Tommy that day a lot in the firehouse. I think I saw him like 3 or 4 times, and he wasn't working. And I'm like, and he's coming in and he's using the phone at the firehouse. And I'm like, that's weird. Why isn't he just using his cell phone?
All right.
And I think it was like they had the fireworks down at the high school, and the lieutenant comes to me and he says, "Hey, you got to go with the guy chauffeuring the ladder for the fireworks. You got to go down and help him set up the ladder." And I'm like, "Okay." So we go down to the high school. We help set up the ladder, and I see Tommy, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's got a bullhorn strapped over the front of him. I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing, bro?" And he's like, "I'm going to propose to Danielle tonight."
Oh man!
So he's going to climb up the aerial that's hanging out over this field that all the people are sitting in for the fireworks. Before the fireworks, he's going to go up there, and his girl's sitting down in the audience, and he's going to propose to her
on the bullhorn.
On the bullhorn. That's why I had the damn bullhorn over top of him, and I was like, "Son of a bitch!" I'm like, "That's a pretty good idea, dude. I'll give it to you on that one, bro." And that was the last. I remember him coming down, and I shook his hand, I gave him a hug, and I was like, "You son of a bitch." And he just smiled with his typical smile, and put a Marlboro Light 100 in his mouth, and he just drawled on a cigarette. He just smiled back and winked at me, and I was like, "That's pretty good, man. I'll give it to you, T." And that was the last time I ever saw him.
Wow.
Well, not the last time, but it's the last time I ever got a chance to talk to him. So, fast forward to 1:30 in the morning ish. Standing out front of the firehouse, and back then I smoked cigarettes. Everybody smoked back then in 2002. I mean, it was the cool thing to do, right? Even my wife smoked. My wife now. So I'm standing out front of the firehouse. I'm smoking a cigarette, and I see one of the cops coming off the side street, and he was coming over, and he was going to pull on the apron. Cops stop by all the time with bullshit stuff like that. And he pulls onto the street, and he goes to pull on the street. I hear the police tones going off in the bay, and I hear them, dispatch, telling the cops that they have a fire in Gloucester with people trapped. And this is before our house tones go off. And I turn around and I start running back in the firehouse. I run over to the bus. I open up the door. I throw my gear on, and the lieutenant and the chauffeur. Now, the chauffeur that day, and this is important to the story, because the guy that was chauffeuring that day, me and the lieutenant were the only guys on the shift that were from the shift. Everybody else was on overtime. The guy chauffeuring that day, we called Papa, George Cannell. We called him Papa. Guy didn't move fast for anybody. Guy had Velcro shoes. His paramedic certification in the state of New Jersey was in the 2 digits.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So you want to talk about the guy that wrote the book, got the movie rights, has the poster? That's this dude. He's a Vietnam medic, right? 2 tours in Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
So he's been there, done that, whole 9 yards. He don't move fast for anything because he's like, well, if we don't get there, how are we going to help? And I just remember putting my pants on and looking up and seeing my lieutenant run out. And he didn't run a whole lot either. And then I looked up and I see George running out of the door. And he's running. And that is the first time I ever saw him run. And I was like, holy shit, this is going to be bad if this dude's running. And, we get in the truck and, we zoom out there and, we turn on the Broadway and it looked like the sun had come up where the Wildwood Bridge was. We had three-story twins, corner, right on the corner. The corner property was burning to beat the band. I mean, first and second floor, well involved. I got off the truck. I saw a lady in a window. There was a guy running around in his underwear. And I was just like, wow, this is weird. Typical Gloucester, somebody's running around in their underwear.
Yeah.
Lady in the window. All right. So, it went out as people trapped. So, it goes out as people trapped. Like when you pull up and there's somebody hanging out a window, it's like a trash man turning the corner and seeing a bunch of trash. Like,
right. You expect it.
They're not surprised.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what they say. That's what you're there for.
Right.
And, not to get into really delving into the whole 4th of July. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that fire, and things that happened, things that and I tell people when I talk about the fire all the time, if that fire happens on Friday when I go to work, I do things differently. I have more knowledge, more training, more experience. I'm going to do things differently. Now, granted, I'm not saying that the outcome isn't the same. Nobody can say that. But I know for me, I do things differently, than I did back in 2002. But I was a young kid. I was a volunteer for 4 years. I'm a career guy for 2.5 years. I mean, for Christ's sake, I had a Superman pen in my pocket, right? Right? I'm fucking Superman. Like, I know everything. Yeah. I know all about this job. I'm a career guy. I know all about this job. I know everything there is to know. And then that fire happens. And then I realized, holy shit, you have no idea what you're doing. So things 38 minutes into it, I come outside to get my bottle changed. And, we had a missing member, this and that, and all these things. And I remember seeing Tommy, and I remember seeing him go in the house. And I just remember saying to myself, man, it is so damn hot. And I was drinking a bottle of water. I'm getting my bottle changed. And I'm like, all right, we got to get back in there. You know what I mean? This fire ain't out yet. There's still fire on the 3rd floor. We're not taking a knee. Back then and still to this day, until the fire goes out, that's when we can stop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This, I'm going to go out and take a knee, talk to some friends, let's rotate. No, that's bullshit. I'm not stopping until the fire goes out. So, I'm thinking that, and then the next thing you know, I look up and I hear a crack and the building falls down right in front of me. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I was literally picking my helmet up to go walk in there. And I'm like, oh my God, I saw Tommy walk in there. I saw Johnny West standing on the porch. So it was the weirdest thing. Like, we all just kind of stood there in awe, like, oh, what do we do now? RIT wasn't a big thing back then. You can bring people on here to talk, oh, well, I did, this, but it wasn't a big thing. I don't even know who the RIT team was. Couldn't even tell you. So I'm like, holy shit! Now the chiefs are getting together and they're trying to get who's missing. And one of the cops from Brooklyn is standing there. He's got a clipboard. Weird thing is, my friend Eli, who wanted to be a Camden fireman and I was going on in the house with, and we were Westville firemen together, he's the cop standing there with the clipboard. And he shows me the clipboard, and I said, Eli, who's missing? He shows me the clipboard, and I see Tommy's name. And I'm like, oh shit. But I don't know what to do. So I'm like, I got to call my wife.
So he's doing accountability?
Yeah, the cop had the accountability of who was missing.
Wow.
Like I said, there are so many things that go along with this job.
Right.
And there's so many things that
I'm not looking to get into the tactics. I was just curious when you said, that the cop had the accountability, because that it threw me.
Yeah. Now, granted, Eli he's a part-time cop, but he's a full-time fireman in Camden. He was working part-time.
Gotcha.
So he's technically, he's a fireman.
Yeah.
But he's just working as a cop at that time.
Gotcha.
And I went and I walked over, and now there's all these people, there's cops coming from everywhere. There was an actual like big ass fight behind us. Like there was a big melee with like 20 cops and people. They're kicking cameras over, all kinds of crazy shit's going on. And I go over and I'm looking for somebody with a cell phone. And as I'm doing that, Tommy's mom and his new fiance, Danielle, see me. Tommy's mom's like, Chris, where's Tommy? Have you seen Tommy? And I'm like, Mayor, I don't know. But in my mind, I'm going, you son of a bitch, you saw that clipboard. You saw whose name was there. He's missing. But I couldn't tell her.
No, I get it, bro. I couldn't do it either.
So then I'm like, look, I'm just trying to find a cell phone so I can call my wife and tell her I'm okay. And they wound up walking by, and I see this older lady standing there, and she's got a cell phone in her hand. And I said, ma'am, do you mind if I use your cell phone to call my wife? And she's like, oh no, absolutely. She hands me the cell phone. And I flip it open. She's like, well, can you do me a favor? And I'm like, yeah, what do you need? Like looking at the cell phone, kind of like half-ass paying attention. And she's like, my 3 granddaughters lived in that corner house. And I'm like dialing the phone number, and I went, what? She's like, yeah, the corner house that was on fire. My 3 granddaughters live in there. Can you tell me if they're okay? And I went, I flipped the phone closed, and I said, yeah, my wife's not answering. So now I see Tommy's mom and his fiance, and now the 3 girls that died in the fire, I'm talking to their grandma.
Oh my God.
I'm like, you gotta be shitting me, dude. So fast forward, Chief Glassman, at the time, the chief of the department, he made a good call. He made a really good call. He special called Philadelphia Rescue 1 into Gloucester. And I think it was the first time that Philadelphia has ever been called out of the city into another state.
Wow.
And those guys came over, and at first, I mean, for a long time, I shouldn't even say at first, I'm fucking lying. I was pissed off because I was like, no, that's our guys, dude. Yeah. We're going to get them.
And it's natural to feel that way, bro. Natural to feel that way.
But it was a complex, it was an inward-outward collapse with a little bit of a pancake collapse and all this stuff. And I'm the first due engine, and I'm directly involved in the rescue operations initially before Rescue 1 got there, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning. But initially, when that thing first collapsed, I'm in this little void space looking at a guy in front of me drowning in water and he can't move. And I'm trying to bang holes in the floor with a Halligan bar so that the water would drain into the basement. You know, we still got a fire. And I sent you a picture. You know, the roof's still on fire. We got we can't get the water pumped out. We can't stop the fire. We got, you know, all these people trapped. And I mean, the Discovery Channel does a little thing on the 4th of July fire. They do a little video. I mean, let me just say this. Some of that, what they show, I mean, the video obviously speaks for itself. You don't have to be, you know, but some of the people in that video that they interview, it's almost, I look at it as almost like a stolen valor thing. They interview these people and they're like, oh yeah, we cribbed this and we used this and we did. First off, I never even saw you there. Never even saw you, and you're getting interviewed talking about what the rescue operation was like. I never even saw you. Second off, you're talking about tactics that we didn't even use. Like, what fire were you at, dude? It burns my ass because it's almost like a stolen valor thing. It's like somebody came around with a microphone and a camera and said, we're from the Discovery Channel. We want to talk about the 4th of July. It's like when you talk about 9/11.
Yeah.
There's always somebody out there that's like, oh, well, I was there. And yeah. I'm like, the fuck you were, dude? You were 3 years old. Would you go to grammar school? Were you in daycare?
I remember hearing stories of people who like were at assemblies talking about what they did at 9/11 and they weren't there, bro. And it's disgusting to me.
Hey, dude, it's like stolen valor, man.
100%, bro.
And in that video, and like I said, I'm not saying any names. You know, you got to look yourself in the mirror. You know who the fuck you are.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look yourself in the mirror, and you know what you said, and that shit wasn't true.
It's crazy, man.
You got to live with that, bro. You got to live with that. But yeah, I mean, but the Discovery, you know, it's got a good, you know, some of the shit's, like I said, some of it's bullshit.
Right.
It's just somebody walking around with a microphone and a camera, and whoever was there was like, yeah, I'll talk. And I'm like, dude, I'm watching this video and I'm like, this son of a bitch wasn't even there. Like, you were home.
It's crazy. That's nuts, bro.
Airbags and we did this. We didn't do any of that shit. So yeah, it just burns my ass. But anyway, you know, we're involved in this rescue operation. Us, you know, me, the guys from Ladder 2, who were the first due truck company there. We're the first due companies. And like I said, I don't even know who the RIT team was. I'm the first due engine. They're the first due truck. And we're in this little space trying to pull guys out. Like, we're the RIT team. We're the first due engine and truck, and we're the RIT team.
It's crazy.
That's how back in the day this shit was.
Right.
But like I said, the chief made a good call. He called in Rescue 1, and you know, years later I realized it was a great call because those guys are not emotionally invested in the guys that are missing. The chances of those guys knowing the guys that are missing were slim to none.
I was just going to say that, man. It takes the personal part of it out of it. I mean, we could say all day, like, yeah, there are brother firemen in there. Of course, we're going to have that type of emotional connection, but not the type you're going to have.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm giving you 3 names: Jimmy, John, and Tom.
Right.
And you're Rescue 1 you can't even put a face.
Right.
To those names. Whereas if you say it to us, like, we're putting faces, we're putting memories, we're putting
families.
Shit we just said to this dude 6 hours ago.
Yep. I mean, you're breaking bread at the table in the kitchen, right, and next thing you know, like, they're not there anymore. It's wild.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, it was a good call by the chief. They came in, and those sons of bitches, you know, meat eaters, went right to work and found them, you know, relatively quickly from what I can remember. But they were totally, you know, total fucking professionals. Found them, uncovered them, took a trench panel, covered them up, said, "Hey, we found the guys," and they were all together. And then they stepped back and they said, "These are your guys. You're taking them out." So Tommy was the first one to come out. So I go up onto the pile, and he still had his mask on, but his mask was all fogged over, but his regulator wasn't in. And I just remember, like, I could see the back of his coat, I could see his helmet. I knew that was his shit, but I couldn't see his eyes, and that freaked me the fuck out. And I was when I moved him, I was like trying to shake him a little bit to see if any moisture would run down on the mask, so I could see his eyes, so I could know. I couldn't take his mask. They said, "Don't take anything off of him. Don't take his fucking mask off. Don't do any of that. Just put him in the basket." And it just, nothing would shake down. So it was like wax paper in their mask.
Wow.
So you're kind of still in disbelief because you can't physically see that person. And weird thing is a little bit, 2 years later, that same you can't see that person comes back again to me. So we put him in the basket, we cover him up with the flag, everybody there. I mean, everybody and their brother was there. They very respectfully take him out, we walk him down, put him in the back of the bus. We do the same thing for John. We do the same thing for Jimmy. And these two guys, Jimmy and John Sylvester and Jimmy West, they were my instructors in the academy. These were guys I looked up to. So, it was just like, holy shit, like these dudes are good firemen, and they're people I looked up to, and this is it. This is their demise. So it was like, it was a long day. From there, we walked down to the church and, walked back to the firehouse. And by then it was like, I don't know, 8 o'clock in the morning. The call went out at 1:38. So I was dead tired, and, it was, and then after that, man, it was, it was, 4 funerals if you count the little girls. 3 fireman funerals, not just 1 fireman funeral, 3 fireman funerals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were drinking out back at the firehouse every night. So it was, it's just what we did, nobody knew what to do, and then we got to go, to John's funeral, Jimmy's funeral, and then Tommy's funeral, and then the 3 little girls. By Tommy's funeral, my uniform was standing up by itself, and it's July.
Yeah,
it's fucking July. Like, they were dry cleaning our uniforms because they smelled so bad from us just sweating profusely in them.
And the things you're talking about, bro, these aren't things we talk about at the fire academy. We don't prep firemen for fireman funerals. We say things like, "Hey, this is a dangerous job, and this, and this can happen." I mean, tactically, this could happen or that could happen. But the demons that this creates, the loss, and I said earlier, and that is that you're breaking bread with someone in the firehouse kitchen talking about politics like we always do, or whatever. Your furnace is on the fritz, and you got to figure out how to work it. So, we're going to take 5 dumbass firemen and try to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But these are things we talk about, and then in a moment's notice, literally in a blink of an eye, man, they're gone. And that's the part that no one prepares us for, is that loss.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's, they didn't talk about that shit when I was in the academy. They didn't talk about that back then. I mean,
nope.
After that fire, they called in the employee assistance program, which they still have to this day, which is a total crock of shit in my eyes. Someone that has gone through it and it's failed them, Um, we basically all sat there in this room, in the training room like this. I'm good. Anybody have any questions? Nope. And then they sent a couple of us who were close to Tommy, they sent us for counseling. And you know what I did? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. It's all good.
Yeah, because if you don't believe in what is being presented to you, if you don't feel like it's true and valued, then that's going to be your response.
Yeah. And I in my eyes, that's, we do this job, you might get killed, and you just have to fucking deal with that shit, bro. That's it. You got to deal with this. You signed up, you took the oath, you were doing this fucking job. You might get killed. And if it does happen to your friends, whatever, you got to deal with it. You got to suck it up. Don't fucking cry about it. We don't want to fucking hear it. So then you start to find other ways to deal with it. And look, I started drinking in Gloucester. It's an Irish Catholic town, right? I started drinking when I was 13 years old. I can still remember to this day the first day I drank when I was 13. I can tell you what house I was in.
It's crazy.
Gloucester was actually a question on Jeopardy for the most bars and churches per capita. The answer was Gloucester City, New Jersey.
I didn't know that. It's wild.
Yeah. I think at one time they had like 50 some bars. Wow. And like 20 some churches.
And 2.5
square miles.
Holy.
30 some bars,
Christ.
20 some churches, or 19 some churches, or some shit like that. I don't know. But it was an actual question on Jeopardy.
Wow. So
if you have a problem with drinking, this is the perfect town for you to be in. So yeah, I mean, you find other ways, not that I don't think I was an alcoholic at that point, but drinking definitely was the way that I coped with the loss of Tommy. Drinking is how a lot of us coped with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just accepted, it was accepted that, you went through a tough loss, bro. You lost your good friend. You lost one of your brothers. It's okay.
Bro, how many times in your life have you heard, oh man, you're splitting up with your old lady, or this is going on, bro, let's come on, bro, let's go get a beer, man, let's talk about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you know what I mean? It always seems to be whenever some shit's going down. I mean, I know in my life, it's been like that too. Like when things have presented themselves to me where I'm in a bad way, it's like the first thing you do is go grab a drink and try to figure it out. And, clearly that's never the answer. Nothing good ever comes out. Nothing good ever comes out of that, ever.
No. Nothing ever good comes out with trying to solve your problem with the booze or being out past 12 o'clock.
Yeah, nothing good happens after midnight.
Nothing ever good happens after midnight.
It's true, bro.
Or trying to answer your fucking problems with alcohol.
It's true.
I'm a fucking walking fact of that. Yeah, but I mean, I tell kids in the academy, I'm like, look, man, this job does not suffer fools. You will fuck around, find out, and get dead. Or you'll get your friend killed, or you'll get someone killed. And that's not fucking good enough. No. But to realize the fact that you can get killed doing this job, that's what you need to understand. And that's why you need to be proficient. Everybody's like, oh, you got to be safe. You got to be safe. You got to be safe. You know how you
It's impossible to be safe in this job. It's possible.
Well, no, it's possible. You know how you be safe in this fucking job? Be fucking good at your job. That's how you be safe.
But the reality is, as soon as you get off the apparatus on the fire ground, anything could happen. It's impossible to be. You could try to be safe, but
look at the dude that got hit in the head with a fucking air conditioning unit.
Right.
In the FDNY. Got hit in the head with an air conditioning unit.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's a hazardous profession. No matter what we do, it's there.
Well, like my friend and my mentor and a guy I still look up to, Brian Emenecker. I mean, you know who Brian is.
I know Brian, yeah.
He says this all the time. This is not a safe fucking job. It says it in your helmet. It says it in your jacket. So your last warning sign is when you get on the truck before you leave the firehouse. That's it. That's your last fucking warning. Like, this is a dangerous job.
Right.
You know, and I hate when people manipulate the word safety to invoke an inaction. We're not going to do anything because it's not safe. That is not acceptable. That is not your fucking job. Safe stands for search and find everyone. That's what that stands for. Now, there's a lot of people out there that don't believe that. There's a lot of people that may not agree with me. Again, this is Chris Ryan's opinion.
Yeah, I have
my opinion.
I've myself had episodes where I've said that and I've got backlash, but I don't care. I'm still going to say it. This is not a safe job. And anyone who thinks that, you know, you're in a safe environment, you're crazy. You're kidding yourself, because anything could happen in any moment. So I know going into this that, hey, there is a possibility I can get hurt or killed. I understand that. And I understand that. But, you know, that statement gets twisted so many different ways, bro. For this, there's so many different people who have their own agendas. But yeah, that's I'll continue to say that.
I was listening to Chief Thompson from the Colonies Fire Department on a podcast earlier, and he said something that resonated with me to the point where I was like, in my phone, I have a little section that I call Proverbs, and all it is just quotes.
Right.
Quotes. Patty Brown's quote. Patty Brown. I'm wearing Patty Brown's shirt right now.
It's awesome.
There's dudes that are probably looking at this going, "Who fuck's Patty Brown?"
Bro, you need to know.
You're asking yourself that question.
Yeah, you need to
Google it right now.
Yeah, please do.
You can do everything right in this job and still get killed. That's a Patty Brown quote. So I got all these proverbs as guys joke around with me at work. But they're all like, they all mean something to me.
Yeah.
And Chief Thompson said, we need to start building a culture of risk acceptance and not risk avoidance. This is a dangerous job. If you're not accepting of that, go fucking find something else to do. I'll write up a whole list of shit that you can do instead of this job. Absolutely.
Hear, hear.
So, he said that. I heard that on the podcast, and I was like a light bulb went off, and I was, I heard trumpets. I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. I got to put that in my phone. We need to keep looking for excuses to fight. Everybody wants to keep looking for excuses to fight less fire, but we need to justify fighting more fire and why we need to do that. And he said that too. And I was just like, I need to work for this dude. Like, I need to meet this guy. I want to be friends with this dude. Not that we can get a beer together, but I just want to sit down and listen to this dude. He could read the fucking phone book, and I'm going to listen to him.
What are you drinking right now, by the way? A Monster?
Yeah, just a Monster.
All right, so I'm drinking a cup of coffee. So, bro, you don't need alcohol to have one of the best conversations, bro, and that's what's happening right here. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I've had to learn to, when you sit down and you have conversations, and you can't do certain things, and you need to alter your drink of choice because, back in the day, we're going to go
100%.
So, where are we at here? We're at, the funerals, shit got crazy. They're having benefit after benefit after benefit. So, you're one of Tommy's good friends. You're one of Fireman's Club. You're not paying for anything. So you got Kate Blanchett on anything you want in the bar.
Right.
So it was, it was a whirlwind of emotions and, but you, like I said, you quickly suppress them because after about 2 weeks, you had to go back to work and back to real life. And it was like, all right, well, I'm just going to get through work and then I'll go home and I'll deal with my emotions at home the way I deal with them. So